I'm proud that I'm part of the Senate Democrats that proposed putting $225 million into a program, not for loans. Most of the programs that you heard about are about loans, but this specific one is grants. There's no strings in terms of having to pay it back or keeping employees on or something of that nature. This is truly a program for the very small businesses, the hairdressers, the individuals that have small shops, things of that nature, that wanted to get going again, but could use a lift to be able to do that. So that gives you a sort of sense of where this is coming from. This money is for the entire state. So not everybody who applies probably will get it, but it's good if you know the details of how to do it so that you can position yourself best if you feel that this is an opportunity that you want to take advantage of. So I'm not the expert, but I've got a few folks on that can talk to you about the program. And one of the individuals that I want to introduce you to is a friend, somebody who I do know very well, and that's Dan Batencourt. Dan is the executive director, president, and CEO of Community First Fund. And this is a community funding organization that's been in Berks County for many, many years. It's regional, actually, but Dan is very, very familiar with Berks County. Dan, thank you so much for being with us. Also with us today is one of our Senate staffers in the Appropriations Committee, Tony Markowski. Tony did a lot of the work in helping to get this legislation teed up and ready to go and approved. So both Tony and Dan are here, as well as Brittany Crampsey. Brittany is the press secretary for Senator Jay Costa and also for the Senate Democratic Caucus. So Brittany's going to be our moderator, but I'm going to turn to perhaps Tony first, if that's okay, Tony, to talk a little bit about the program, and then to Dan. And they will be fielding some of your questions about the program once you learn more about it. Take it away, Tony.
Thanks, Senator Schwenk. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm not going to take too much time because I'm going to actually let Dan take the lead. The CDFIs are really the core of making this program successful. There are 17 CDFIs, part of a statewide network that we encourage you to start reaching out to. I'm sure one of the questions today will be, when can I start applying? And that will be the end of this month. We're hoping things can go live on the 30th, and I'll let Dan elaborate more on that. But in the meantime, we strongly encourage you to start reaching out to your CDFIs like Dan and others so that you have all of the appropriate paperwork in the queue and ready to go when things go live. And again, I'll let Dan elaborate on all of that. As Senator Schwenk mentioned, these are grants. We can't stress that enough. As you're aware, through SBA and other state programs, those have been loans. These are grants, so you don't have to pay those back. These are geared toward you, the small businesses, the backbone of our communities, the heart of our communities. So we're looking at 25 employees or fewer, revenue about $1 million or less, and we can get more into the details. But that's really, the big picture. And I'm going to kick it over to Dan and let him explain it. I will be here to back him up because we've gotten other questions along the way that we've been able to tag team in other venues like this. So Dan.
So thank you, Tony. Thank you, Senator Schwenk. Senator Schwenk, I'll tell you that one of my fast heroes in the legislature is Tony Markowski. She's helped our industry, our community lending organizations maneuver the legislative process, and here we are. We had a vision as a set of community development organization, lending organization across the state. We had a vision to try to get capital and grant capital out to very small businesses, as described by the senator. And Tony, as you know, in COVID, we're not, lending to businesses is not really the way to go. We would only be lending to finance losses. And so we approached the legislature about 2.5 months ago and proposed a program to provide grants to small businesses across the entire state. Recently, you may have heard Community First Fund worked on on a grant program with the city of Reading. We worked and got about 150 grants out for about $1 million. And then the county commissioners is working on a small program, about $2 million. So this program is a go-wide strategy. Our goal here is to provide about 15,000 grants across the state. Now, we believe we're going to get over 30,000 requests for that $200 million plus. So today we're going to talk about how to be successful on your grant application. I would also encourage, and I have encouraged the county commissioners to think about also doing a local strategy as well, to put more, to go very deep and to provide more grant capital. So what I'm getting at is, this is a thin layer of ice across the entire state, but I do want to make sure that Berks County businesses are successful when they apply for this capital. First, I want to tell you about a very important website, and it's very easy to remember. And this is where you can get on, you can register and actually get updates, because this application is going to go live by June 30th, and that's www.pabusinessgrants.com. If you go in there, you're going to get, you'll be able to receive updates, and then you'll see when we go live at the end of this month. So as Tony mentioned, we are 17 organizations. We, Community First Fund, have worked in Berks County for over 20 years. We're your local organization. Feel free to work with us or any of the 17 organizations when you apply. I will tell you that there's no advantage of working with one organization or another. We're all working with one unified online application. It is not a first come, first served basis. That is to say, we're not gonna timestamp your application. What we're gonna do is we're gonna open up our application for 2 weeks. So we'll open it, as I said, by June 30th, and it'll be open approximately till July, I believe, 14th, 10 business days. And what we're gonna do is we have certain priorities, which I'm gonna share in a couple seconds. And then what we'll do is we'll prioritize the entire group of applicants or the cohort, and then we'll fund those applicants in the first round. We expect that there will be 3 or 4 rounds between now and November. So if you don't apply in the first round, it's okay. We would want you to apply. There'll be other rounds. And the reason why we're doing that is we really want to look at distribution across the state. We really want to make sure it gets deep into these, as deep as we can in these communities, and we'll have opportunities to recalibrate in different rounds. So a couple eligibility, very high level. Obviously, the business has to be located in Pennsylvania, with the majority of the revenues, 51% or more, being in Pennsylvania, coming from Pennsylvania. And as Tony said, the maximum sales is $1 million, up to $1 million, and 25 employees, FTEs or less. We're going to prioritize low to moderate income borrowers. That is household income. Again, that's a priority. We're also going to prioritize low income census tracts. So, you know, in Berks County, that's obviously Kutztown and Reading. We're also going to prioritize other designations like Main Street, Elm Street. There's many boroughs across the county that have, you know, those local plans, and there'll be a priority around that. We're also going to prioritize certain industries that were hardest hit by COVID, including hospitality, food, personal care, you know, like barbershops and salons, and other related businesses to healthcare. So there's a small priority around that. And of course, there's a priority around women-owned businesses as well. There is about 100 million of the 200 million is going to be focused or prioritized to historically disadvantaged businesses. And that is business owners that are African-American, Hispanic, Native American, or Asian. That's the federal definition that we are using there. So again, our goals are to prioritize this across the state, and we think that Berks County would do very well. The grants, as been mentioned, are between $5,000 and $50,000, and they are, it depends on the size of your sales. So the larger your sales, the higher the grant. So if you have, for example, sales of $250,000 to $500,000, the grant will be $25,000. If sales are over $850,000, that's when you qualify for the $50,000. But the minimum grant, if you have sales under $100,000, is $5,000. We're really not focused on your net income. We assume that you're running a successful business. What we want to do is establish that you're a legitimate business. There's certain documents that we're going to need. Obviously, your tax return, 18 or 19, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. So actually, what I can do is tell you the major documents that you're going to need to prepare for this application. It's pretty minimal because keep in mind, this is a grant program. So you'll need either 18 or 19 tax return. You'll need a copy of your driver's license. These are all things you'll want to upload on the application. And finally, you're going to need to prove the state registration on your business. That is to say, you're going to need an article of incorporation or a fictitious name paper, that's a doing business as, or your business license. So if you don't have, if you're, let's say, a barber and you're a 1099 employee and you have your state license, that's good enough. If you're a taxi driver and you have your state license on that, it's good enough. If you're a truck driver and you have your CTL, that's as good as a state registration. We just want to prove that you have your business in place. So those are the basics. Some businesses that are not eligible, I will tell you, are nonprofits, obviously churches, and businesses that we would consider not responsible, like predatory businesses, et cetera. So that's a pretty high level overview, Judy, with some of the priorities of the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. Maybe Brittany, will turn to you to, answer some questions. I know we've had some come in already, but maybe some of the folks out there want to go in the chat. Let us know if you have a question.
Exactly. All right, we did get a good number of pre-submitted questions, but if you're live watching now, you can go to the chat box. It'll be on the right-hand portion of your screen once you click the chat bubble on the bottom center of your screen. So type them in there and we'll get to them in just about the order that they come in. So to get started, one that we received ahead of time, what is the definition of socially and economically disadvantaged? Is it defined as a minority-owned, woman-owned, veteran-owned, or service-disabled veteran-owned business, similar to the Small Diverse Business Capital Access Program, or is it a different definition?
So the term that we're using is historically, and the word historically is the key word here. Historically disadvantaged business. And so historically means communities of color. If you use the federal definition, it is populations that have been historically discriminated against when it comes to financial services. And those populations I mentioned are African American, Hispanic, Asian, and Native American. And so the 100 million of the 200 will be reserved for historically disadvantaged business owners.
All right, next question we got ahead of time. If a business is in a low-income area and 51% owned by a socially and economically disadvantaged individual, or in a low-income area, or 51% owned by a socially and economically disadvantaged individual, can they be one or the other, or do they have to be both?
They only have to be one of them, because if you're historically disadvantaged, we're gonna look at in that reserve in that pot of money. If you're in low income, census tract or low income, and you're not a person of color, then there'll be another pot of money of 100 million. So it's one or the other.
All right, now we have a Berks County specific question. According to the guidelines put out by DCED, 4 CDFIs will be serving Berks County for the purposes of the COVID-19 Small Business Grant Program. We've heard that only 2 or 3 may actually be intending to serve Berks. Will that delay or otherwise negatively impact the ability of Berks County business owners to apply for the program or receive grant funds? Will enterprise and assets cover Berks?
So we have one unified call center. And we've pulled our resources together. So when you call in any of those numbers, you're going to be speaking to our combined office staff. So as I said, there is no advantage of applying through one organization or the other. We all pulled our resources together and hired one online platform and then a call center as well.
All right. Restaurants and similar food service small businesses typically run on razor-thin margins in a good year. This year, the pandemic has threatened the very future of a large number of these businesses. Even if a restaurant grosses 1.3 or 1.4 million in sales, that doesn't necessarily mean they've made that money or are sitting on capital to cover the expenses and losses incurred as a result of the pandemic. Is there any flexibility in the guidelines to consider a business with gross sales slightly above $1 million for grant assistance? Understanding the gross sales in the current year could be half that amount or less. What about using profitability margins as a criteria for eligibility?
Yes, there was just happened to be a cutoff at $1 million. And we could have picked any number, but what I will tell you is there's 1 million business owners that have 20 or less employees in Pennsylvania. And so this program is going to be oversubscribed. And we had to pick some cutoff point, and it may affect certain business owners that have sales over $1 million.
All right, now I see we're getting some live questions in the chat, so we'll jump to those. Pete wants to know, what if you have a startup business in January of 2019 and started making income in 2020? Would you be eligible then?
Yes, as long as the business owner, their business was open prior to February 15th, they will be eligible. So if they open up in January, as you said, they just have to provide an interim financial statement and they will be eligible as well.
Great. Mark wants to know, you mentioned Main Street groups, but not nonprofits. Is that correct?
I was referring to the designation of Main Street, or what some of us know as a DID or Elm Street. Those are planning designations. And so if you are located in a community that went through community planning, there would be a small preference for that.
All right, now Brittany, not me, wants to know in the chat, will the businesses need to prove a COVID-19 related financial hardship? Can you include projected increased costs of reopening your business to the public after COVID-19?
Right, so that's sort of two questions. The first one is, we're gonna look at the impact of the business. There is a question on, we're trying to figure out how much of the impact financially on your business. So that's one piece that's in the application. And the second part about, I see that as sort of the use of the money. The money could be used for anything that's COVID related. So the example I like to give is, if you're a restaurant and you have to build a deck so that you have to socially distance, that is COVID related, and that's just fine. So if you have losses, that's COVID related. If you have loans that you have to pay that you incurred prior to COVID, they're all related. And on an aside, the question's not there. If you got a prior award through some federal or state or local program, as long as it's not used for the same amount of money, same purpose, then you're eligible. That is to say, if you got a PPP loan and you use that for payroll, as long as this application is not for the same purpose, it is an eligible cost.
Great. Will the money be released in more than one tranche? And if there's a second tranche of funds available, will any adjustments be made to the eligibility guidelines, increasing maximum gross sales limit or number of employees based on what may be observed in the first round of applications?
There will be more than one round. We're expecting 3 or 4. And I will say that if you have applied in one round, you don't have to apply again. If you had a low score, it will probably tell you that you're probably not going to be approved. But either way, you won't have to reapply. And what we'll do is we'll consider you in a future round. As far as the second part of your question, if you can repeat that for me.
The second part was whether adjustments would be made to the eligibility guidelines.
So that's why we want to do more than one round. We believe there'll be learnings in each round, and we'll tweak it a little bit. I mean, we don't intend to change the priorities in a big way, but there might be things that we have to think about. Geographic dispersion might be one you have to think about, among other little factors that we have.
All right, what are the specific expectations for loan payment? Please explain advanced allocation payment. I read on the website this does not require payment.
That's correct. This is a grant program. All we're trying to do is understand whether you're a business that's, for the reasons that I said, if you're located in Pennsylvania, sales under $1 million, we just want to make sure you're eligible, and then we're going to rank it by program priorities.
Great. I just want to remind people who are watching live, if you have questions, please type them into the chat and we will get to them. I see we have quite a few coming in. Now we have a question specific to one business. We are a small family-owned business that just set up our LLC in 2018. Because the banks seem to be showing favor in assisting their larger business account holders, we knew that the first round of federal assistance money was used up quickly. How can we be sure that we, a small company, will receive equal opportunity to obtain grant money under this latest package?
And that was one of the travesties that happened under the PPP, where a lot of small business owners weren't even able to apply because they weren't a customer of a bank. And the banks did rethink that strategy. And the idea for this program is actually to get the small mom and pop businesses that did not receive support, either federal or local money in prior emergency programs. So the intent of this program is to try to reach that small business owner.
And Dan, I'm going to jump in. It's not a first come, first served, as you said, and we just want to reinforce that, hence why there are several different rounds.
Barbara wants to know, is there a minimum number of employees?
No, I mean, just one person is just fine.
All right, we're getting a couple of questions now about nonprofits. Could you explain that again, whether nonprofits can apply and whether they can apply if they've received a PPP loan?
Nonprofits are not eligible. That's per the state guidelines.
And I'll jump in there. I mean, that's how the guidelines are written at the state level. Unfortunately, I mean, even the 200 million out there for grants won't be enough for all the small businesses in the Commonwealth. What I will say is that, Senator Schwank and others in the Senate Democratic Caucus are fighting in Harrisburg for funding for nonprofits. It's a bipartisan process, as you all know. So hopefully we can convince our colleagues on the other side of the aisle to see the benefit in helping nonprofit businesses in our communities. But this program is only for small businesses.
Can I just follow up on that quickly? We do recognize as legislators what nonprofits mean in our community. And nonprofit can be everything from a healthcare facility to an advocacy organization, right, on specific issues. But those organizations matter, things like Habitat for Humanity or other kinds of groups that are trying to make our community better. Boy, COVID-19 has changed everything, hasn't it? And there is so much need out there. So we're going to try to address it. And I think if you're hearing that the money isn't coming out fast enough that we receive from the feds, we're trying to be judicious, Republicans and Democrats, and how this is going to be dispersed. Because we know things will change even as we go along. As we move to the new normal, and I won't use that phrase again. Thank you.
Senator Schwank makes an excellent point. And so I'll speak from the appropriations perspective. We have to follow federal guidelines. This money that we're pushing out from the state comes from the feds, and there are a lot of bureaucratic strings attached. So we want to make sure that you're doing the right thing, because there will be audits from a state and federal perspective, and we want to make sure no one's in the position of having to give money back. I mean, that would be a terrible situation. This money also has to be spent by a certain period of time per federal guidelines. It has to be used specifically only for COVID-related expenses. So if you were suffering losses pre the pandemic, unfortunately, those aren't covered. But these are all things that we have to abide by per the federal regulations.
All right, Dan, you got a short break there in the rapid fire questions. Are you ready to get back to it?
Thanks for the break, Tony.
So you got a short drink there. If a
Right.
company received a grant previously, are they eligible again?
Under this program, if they applied and received a grant, no. But if they received a grant or a forgivable loan in other programs, they'll be eligible. There is a very small deduction for that, almost negligible, quite frankly. But because we really want to prioritize business owners that did not receive any prior support, although you will be eligible if you did receive prior support. You just got to show that there's a need, that you had a financial loss beyond that support you had. And I don't think that'll be hard, because I think everyone recognizes the losses for COVID. We can never make up for that. Even this particular grant program is not going to help you expand your business. It can only help you sustain losses.
All right, what grants are available for small member-run, no employee businesses?
Member-run business. I guess I'm not familiar with that. What that means.
I think they may mean owner-run and operated.
Oh yeah, that's fine. They're as long as they have a Schedule C or a corporate return or LLC, all that's eligible to apply for this.
All right, this question is fairly similar. Seeking relief for a 1099 independent contractor for business owner with no employees. Are there credit requirements needed?
So that's what I've been describing. A 1099 employee will typically file a Schedule C on their personal tax return, and they are eligible.
All right, good news. That knocks out a couple of our questions further on the list.
Yeah.
Are there any matching requirements for grant funds requested? And are new small business ventures eligible to apply?
There's no matching, but as I said, if you started, if you were in business by February 15th and you open up in 2020, then you just need to provide an interim financial. And quite frankly, we don't, it could be, just something written on paper. I mean, we just want to see that you have a financial statement that we can recognize, and then that you have a license and your tax return, and you will be eligible to, and I say license, I'm talking about a business license or an article of incorporation. We just have to see what kind of business that you're in.
Excellent. This next question has 6 parts, but I'm going to try to push some of them together.
I might need to write these down, Brittany.
This is sort of like an LSAT practice test now. What is the process for applying for grants? What is the criteria for qualifying? What's the timeline for receiving grants? And what's the maximum amount a single entity can receive?
All right, I think I got 4 of them. Anyway, so
you answered the other 2.
The process is that website that Tony wrote there, pabusinessgrants.com. Keep track of it. We're going to put our application on there live. It's going to link to one of the 17 organizations. As I said, you can pick one. It's all going to be going to one online application behind the scenes. As far as the criteria, we said it was $1 million or less in revenues and 25 FTEs or less. And Pennsylvania-based business, those basics. One thing I will tell you is you have to be current on your taxes, federal and state, and you have to have a plan. And so those are real basic criteria. As far as the timeline, we're going to have the application open for 2 weeks. So that would put us in about the middle of July. So the beginning of July to the middle. We're going to take 2 weeks to evaluate that round, and then we will start funding within 30 days. And finally, the last one was, can't read my own handwriting. What was the last question on there?
What's the maximum amount a single entity can receive in grants?
The maximum is $50,000.
Great. Must an entity have collateral and a certain amount of personal funds in order to apply for the grants?
So we're not going to be looking at personal. This is not a credit decision. We're not underwriting. All we're doing is just seeing if you're eligible, you're a legitimate business, you've had a loss, and then you follow some of the criteria that we talked about and priorities, and you will be eligible for this grant.
Tom in the chat here wants to know, can grant funds be used to pay delinquent tax liabilities created as a result of COVID?
Well, my general answer is if you can show it's COVID related. I don't know that there's an exclusion for that purpose, but all reasons have to be COVID related. But I can check on that. That's it. I don't believe tax payments are excluded as long as they're COVID related, but I will check on that.
Professional trade associations do not qualify, correct?
If they're nonprofits, they would not.
Okay. What steps is the SBA taking to make it easier for small businesses with limited human resources to access grants and loans? Small businesses are often the last organizations to apply for funds when there are numerous hurdles included in the application. For instance, to apply for the PPP funds, our small business had to prepare and file 2019 tax returns before applying. The program would have been more accessible to small businesses if it simply took 2018 tax returns, which had already been submitted, or if it accepted 1099s or other revenue confirmations.
Well, I mean, you're asking me about the SBA. I happen to know we're an SBA lender. I happen to know a little bit about it. I will say that the SBA emergency loan program, EIDL, did reopen. I just saw a notice of that this week. The PPP, I believe, is going to close down at the end of the month. And so as far as the question on 1099 I'm sorry, as far as the filing for 2019, that's correct. But we were allowed to make some exceptions around that related to their interim statements, because some people were on extension and things like that. But it was not an easy process. I do understand that. And what we've tried to do in this program is to try to simplify the things that we learned that were onerous in PPP on the SBA program.
As part of the grant application process, will the CDFIs also be able to help business owners identify other potential sources of financial assistance?
Yes, to the extent that you can have a relationship with your CDFI and you can talk to the staff, we can point you to other areas as well. There are many local funds. Many CDFIs already work with their local community, helping get that capitalized. I talked earlier in the program where we've managed 2 or 3 in Berks County alone. And we're talking with the commissioners to do a countywide one beyond this one as well.
Right, how will the applications be vetted? Are the CDFIs staffed to handle the applications?
So as I said, we have a call center that will have about 100 employees, FTEs, I should say. As we're going to be doing a lot of due diligence, there are 5 or 6 points that we're going to check. We're certainly going to check a criminal background. We're going to do a soft pull of the credit to make sure it lines up to, again, this is not a credit score, it's to make sure that the tax return matches the credit, matches the criminal. We're going to do a pull from the Department of State. We're going to check things that relate to the business owner, and that's all behind the scenes. And we do have plenty of capacity to do that. And again, that's just fraud prevention and eligibility. And then it'll be we'll look at the entire round together, and we're going to have a scoring system. And then we will start ACHing money directly to the business owner's account.
All right, are there other grants available for preschools that are 501c3 organizations currently available for the purpose of purchasing PPE, cleaning supplies, and other COVID-related expenses that are anticipated for the upcoming school year?
Just my little knowledge of some counties using their block grant, Title V block grant. Some of them are providing monies for PPE for businesses. Again, I don't know if Berks County is doing this. I know they just put their plan together with the state. I guess we'll have to see more information that maybe the senator or someone related to the commissioners may know if they're going to be investing in PPE for businesses and nonprofits across the county. I know some counties are doing that.
I'll just jump in for a second and say, and maybe Tony, you know this as well, being on appropriations, is that there has been funding that's been dispersed to preschools and the network of daycares to help them get restarted again. But there's also a second level of funding that they are actually, this comes through the Department of Human Services. They're waiting to see how these, who opens up and how they do it. And then there'll be, I don't know, I think it's about 50 million, tell me if I'm wrong, Tony, that will be dispersed again to help daycares and preschools get up and running. And I'm very concerned about that, and a lot of legislators are, because if we don't have adequate daycare, people can't go back to work very well. So we've got to get that figured out and help you to get restarted again. We can get more information on that if you want to follow up on it.
So there was an initial tranche of $51 million in May, as the senator alluded to, that went to child care centers through DHS, and we're working on a next round of those funds. So I would say, continue to monitor Senator Schwenk's website or wherever, and we can keep you posted on that type of information.
Where do we find out where these grants are being distributed?
I think what I said about the website, if that's the question, oh, you mean in terms of public information, as in terms of who's getting it? We're still working to detail out what our requirement and obligations are, and then try to balance that out with privacy, but it may be that we have to make it public. I don't know the final answer on that.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. What does the term operating costs include?
Operating costs, we're really just looking at the sales and then the net income of the business owner and household income. I don't know that we're looking at the operating sale I'm not sure what the question's asking, but we're looking at revenues or sales.
All right. Can debts and refunds be paid with this money?
I believe if it was incurred prior to COVID, yes.
As a follow-up to that, if you had to cancel an event that was to be held after COVID, but the tickets were sold before COVID, are you able to issue refunds with this money?
I believe it's COVID related. It's pretty broad. If you had losses sustained from COVID, I think it's going to be eligible. I mean, in many respects, the business owner is going to have to self-certify that the use of this money is going to be used for COVID related losses or COVID related adaptations. So as long as they can certify that's COVID related, we're going to accept that.
All right, you mentioned earlier in vetting the applications about a criminal record. Does having a prior criminal record disqualify you from receiving one of these grants?
If it was, and right now, I believe it's 3 years. If you've had if you have a felony incurred in the last 3 years, you will not be eligible. And some of these are federal guidelines that we're following.
Okay, if a small business did not file taxes for the year ending in 2019, are they eligible for this grant?
Yes. So if they have, and again, July 15th is coming up. So for the first round, we will be able to use their 18 if they don't have their 19 ready. And in the future, we will want their 19 or proof of the extension and then still get their 18.
All right, we've gotten through all of the questions that I had here. Does anyone in the chat have additional questions or anyone watching? I'll give you a minute or two to plug those in. Thank you, Dan, for so succinctly answering all of those questions. I know it's been a lot.
You were pretty good at that, Dan. We have another one of these at 3 o'clock. I expect you to be faster.
I'm going to be ready for this. I'll tell you what, this is, I've done probably this is probably my 10th or 12th town hall meeting, and I've never received so many questions like this. This is Berks County is an inquisitive group, I'll say, and I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, when we expect our fair share. It looks like Russ has a question.
Russ has a question.
Is there a phone number that we can call if we have questions?
Yes, you can call Community First Fund, and that's 717-393-2351. We're also going to have a call center that we're going to announce here in a couple of days, along with the online application. And as I said, if you register with the website that I talked about, pabusinessgrants.com, there'll be more information coming around more customer service opportunities for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dan, I put the pabusinessgrants.com in there a few times in the chat, but do you want to maybe put your phone number and contact in the chat as well in case some others didn't quite catch that?
Give you actually on the phone, I saw her is Lucy's on the phone. But I'll give you the name of the local, actually, I'm going to give you the local number. That's probably better. So it's Lucy Cortez, and she's right in downtown, and Alba Fernan. And I'm going to provide both of those numbers, or someone can, type them faster than I can say it. Give me 1 second here. You're testing my financial abilities here. Right, Alba, someone can type this. So for Alba, these are direct numbers. It's 610-780-1096. That's right there on Penn Street. That's Alba. And then Lucy, thank you. And Lucy's direct number is 610-685-4940. The other number I gave is just to our Lancaster office. I think you're going to get quicker and better and more local service right there on Penn Street.
We'll be following this too in our local office, Dan, and Tony. So, if anybody needs has some questions or they can't get through somewhere, I see Tom Gumbar from my staff is on the, on the Zoom meeting too. And you can call our office at 929-2151. And, we'll be monitoring it. We're not running it. Lucy and Alba are the better contacts for sure, but we're here too. And we want to follow this. This is brand new. And hopefully it will work very, very well. And, we'll see how that goes. But I wanted to be sure that my constituents had an opportunity to really learn about this and see if it's something that will help you. I love the idea that this is really for the micro businesses and the very, very small businesses, because it didn't seem like anything else before really was geared to this market. And surely folks have suffered who were just launching a business or had a very small organization. They've suffered as a result of this, and we hope we can help.
Something that we learned from the SBA PPP program. Our average forgivable loan was $15,000, and we had many business owners that did not understand technology, because again, we could not meet with their clients. We could not meet with them to get a wet signature, so we had to do everything online. And so the application process again was very similar. And they did not know how to upload, for example, tax returns. So we were, again, I don't expect business owners maybe on this phone, but there are many disadvantaged business owners that we had to provide a lot of support to get them through the system. We were able to approve 95% of the businesses. And again, PPP was different because we were able to fund every eligible business because we went out and raised the capital to do that. And actually some of the local foundations helped us do that. The Why I'm Missing and the Berks Alliance, and actually Ed Swear I saw is on the phone. The Greater Berks helped fund that with Community First Fund. So that is a long way to say that this is a little bit different. This is going to be a little bit competitive. We might be subscribed 3 and 4 times the availability of money. I know 200 million sounds like a lot of money, and it does to me, believe me. But when I see that there's 1 million business owners across Pennsylvania, I know that we could only fund 15 or so thousand. We're going to have to prioritize that in the area the center said, which is micro businesses, disadvantaged businesses, and ones that are in low-income census tract, and in certain industries that we talked about.
All right, Senator, I'm not seeing any additional questions here, but I see Jamie from your office put your office number in the chat. So if anyone thinks of their questions later and can't join us again at 3 o'clock for the rerun, you can call 601-929-2151.
Brittany, we've recorded this. Can't we just replay this and then Senator and I can just sit back?
It's hardly any fun. We're going to see if we can squeeze more questions in at 3 o'clock.
If I can make it, Dan, you can.
Okay, I'll be there.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I really am happy that you were here today. I'm pretty excited about it. I know not everybody's going to get this. I understand it. But I do like the idea that this is going to help people that didn't think there was anything out there for them. And you deserve it as much as anybody else does, right? Stay tuned to it. Get on that website so that you get updates as they come in. As Dan said, they hope this will start June 30th, right? Or July 1st, Dan?
June 30th is the date we're expecting.
June 30th. And you know what? They're a big enough network that I think that this will happen. And I like the idea that you have a call center. You're going to have professionals on there answering those questions, not like we're training new people to figure this out. And it doesn't sound that complicated. So I hope you'll take advantage of it. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.